Have you ever felt that deep, piercing pain when someone hits you emotionally? That sense of vulnerability, like you're exposed, unprotected from sharp words, subtle manipulation, or draining energies. As if some people had the power to enter your mind and heart without permission, leaving behind a trail of anxiety, doubt, and exhaustion. If any of this resonates with you, know that Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, discovered the path to true emotional immunity. Most human suffering comes from unacknowledged projections and weak psychological boundaries, Jung once said. What you're about to learn today will forever change the way other people affect you. For years, many of us have lived like emotional sponges, absorbing energy, criticism, and manipulation without even realizing it. While some seem naturally immune to this kind of psychological invasion, you might have wondered why certain words or behaviors affect you so deeply. But that ends today. Using the powerful principles of Jungian psychology, I'll show you how to build a psychological shield that's not only strong, but also healthy and open to what truly matters. In our previous video, we talked about identifying toxic influences in your life. Now it's time for the crucial step, learning how to truly protect yourself from them. This is the final phase of your emotional liberation. And no, it's not about isolating yourself from the world or building cold walls around you. I'm talking about an inner strength so powerful that nothing and no one can shake your peace again. Do you know what it's like to constantly worry about what others think of you? That feeling of walking on eggshells, carefully choosing every word, every move, afraid of upsetting someone. Or maybe you're all too familiar with that deep exhaustion after spending time with certain people, like they drained every bit of your vital energy. Worse still is the pain of emotional manipulation, the guilt that isn't yours, the responsibility for problems you didn't create, the weight of others' unrealistic expectations on your shoulders. There are some clear signs that your emotional boundaries are compromised. Feeling anxious before meeting certain people, struggling to say no even when it's harming your well-being, carrying guilt for things beyond your control, feeling responsible for other people's happiness, or having mood swings depending on your environment. Think about that family gathering where a seemingly innocent comment about your life or choices left you overthinking for days, or that co-worker who, with a single subtle sentence, makes you question your professional capabilities. Or maybe it's a relationship where you always end up giving in, always end up feeling like you're wrong or need to change just to be accepted or loved. The issue isn't just the immediate impact of these situations, but the cumulative toll they take on your life force. Every psychological invasion, every successful emotional manipulation, every critique you internalize as absolute truth slowly drains your inner strength. It's like having tiny holes in a bucket of water. Eventually, without even noticing, you find yourself empty, exhausted, lost. Carl Jung deeply understood this phenomenon. For him, our vulnerability to external influences is directly linked to unintegrated aspects of our psyche. What Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, hide, or don't know, becomes our weak spot, the open door through which others can manipulate or hurt us. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, Jung said. In other words, unless we fully understand our emotional vulnerabilities, we'll remain stuck in the same painful situations, drawn to the same toxic relationships, repeating the same harmful patterns. Many try to protect themselves by building rigid walls, becoming inaccessible, cold, or distant. Others go to the opposite extreme, staying completely open and vulnerable, hoping their kindness will be returned. But Jung offered a radically different path, building healthy psychological boundaries through deep self-knowledge and the integration of our fragmented inner self. What you're about to learn isn't just a temporary emotional protection technique. It's a complete transformation of your relationship with the world, with others, and most importantly, with yourself. It's an inner journey that begins with honestly recognizing your vulnerabilities, so that paradoxically, they can become your greatest strength. Let's start with the most powerful foundation Jung gave us, self-knowledge as the root of true emotional protection. Contrary to what many believe, knowing yourself isn't just a philosophical or spiritual journey, it's a practical tool for psychological survival. Jung used to say, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside, awakens, and that awakening is the first step toward becoming invulnerable to negative influences. The problem is that most of us spend our lives looking outward, seeking approval, validation, acceptance. In the process, we lose touch with our inner truth and become vulnerable to what Jung called psychic contagion, the tendency to be infected by the emotions, opinions, and energies of others. The more disconnected we are from ourselves, the more easily we're influenced by the external world. That's why the first technique I want to teach you is what I call the emotional vulnerability mapping. It's a deep Jungian self-knowledge exercise. Grab a notebook and write down every recent situation where you felt emotionally shaken by something someone said or did. Be specific. What exactly affected you? Was it a comment about your appearance? A remark about your professional skills? A subtle judgment about your life choices? Then for each situation, ask yourself the most important question. What part of me was hit? What old wound was touched? What insecurity was exposed? What fear was triggered? Jung teaches that when something affects us disproportionately, it's because it touched a cluster of emotionally charged memories, feelings and beliefs that live in our unconscious. For example, if a casual comment about your presentation left you ruminating for days, ask, is this connected to an unconscious belief that I'm not good enough? Does it relate to childhood experiences where my efforts were never recognized? The more you understand your specific vulnerabilities, the less power others will have over you. Jung also taught us the crucial importance of understanding our own shadow, those parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or reject. It's not enlightenment we find by fleeing darkness, he said, but understanding of the dark. When we recognize and integrate our shadow, no one can use those parts against us. Here's a powerful exercise. Identify the traits you criticize, most in others. What really irritates you in people's behavior? That selfish person who drives you crazy? That friend who always plays the victim? That relative who tries to control everything and everyone? Jung would say, you're likely projecting aspects of your own shadow, parts of yourself that you've rejected and can only see in others. By recognizing these projections, you begin to reclaim fragmented pieces of yourself. And with each reintegrated piece, that's one less vulnerability, one less way to be manipulated or hurt. It's like closing, one by one, the doors through which negative energy enters. Another fundamental element of Jungian emotional protection is the development of healthy psychological boundaries. Unlike rigid walls that isolate or a total lack of limits that leaves you exposed, Jung proposed the concept of individuation, the process of becoming a whole being, distinct, with a clear sense of where you end and the other begins. For Jung, our psychological boundaries naturally develop as we become more aware of who we truly are, our values, needs, limits, and authentic desires. When we're clear about what belongs to us and what doesn't, it becomes much harder for others to confuse or manipulate us. The first practical step in establishing healthy boundaries is what I call the sacred no. In many spiritual traditions, we're taught the importance of yes, acceptance, openness, surrender, and that's valuable. But Jung reminds us that no is also sacred. It's the affirmation of our individuality, the protection of our psychological integrity. Start by identifying situations in your life where you need to say no more often. Maybe it's those invitations you accept out of guilt, those favors you do at the expense of your well-being, or those toxic conversations you allow out of fear of disappointing others. Practice saying, I can't help this time. I'm not comfortable with this conversation. No, that doesn't work for me. At first it may feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilt or fear of rejection, but soon you'll notice something surprising. The more you respect your own boundaries, the more others will too. It's as if your sacred no teaches people how to relate to you in a healthier way. Jung also taught us the importance of distinguishing between healthy empathy and harmful emotional fusion. Many sensitive and empathetic people absorb others' emotions as if they were their own, in a process he called unconscious identification. You can be deeply understanding of someone else's pain without needing to carry it as your own. One powerful technique to develop this distinction is the visualization of energetic boundaries. Imagine a field of light surrounding you, your personal space, your psychological territory. Picture it as flexible but strong, semi-transparent, allowing positive exchanges, but solid enough to filter out harmful energy. Practice this visualization regularly, especially before interactions you expect to be challenging. Now let's explore one of Jung's most profound insights, the power of projections and how they shape our interactions. Jung discovered that much of what hurts us emotionally isn't truly about us. It's the unconscious projections of others. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, he said. But the reverse is also true. What irritates others in us is often their own projection, not a reflection of who we really are. Think about the time someone reacted disproportionately to something you said or did. Maybe a casual comment triggered a burst of anger, or a well-meant suggestion was taken as harsh criticism. What was really happening? Most likely a projection. That person wasn't reacting to you, they were reacting to something inside them that your words happened to activate. Jung's technique of the psychological mirror is transformative in this context. When someone attacks, criticizes, or tries to manipulate you, practice silently asking yourself, what is this person projecting onto me right now? What part of their own shadow are they seeing reflected in me? This simple shift in perspective creates healthy distance. You stop absorbing the projection as truth. Jung taught us that projections have a magnetic quality. It's as if certain traits in us, both positive and negative, attract specific projections. For example, kind and helpful people often receive projections of weakness or naivety. Assertive people are frequently seen as aggressive or insensitive. The Jungian method of disidentification involves recognizing these patterns and consciously separating what truly belongs to you from what is being projected onto you. When someone says, "You're so selfish," instead of immediately defending yourself or internalizing the accusation, try thinking, that's this person's perception, possibly a projection, not necessarily a truth about me. A powerful verbal technique in these situations is what I call the reflective question. Respectful but firm questions that hand the projection back to its source. For example, that's an interesting point of view. What specific behavior of mine led you to that conclusion? Or I'd like to understand better. What exactly does selfish mean to you? These questions accomplish two things at once. They show that you're not taking in the projection as absolute truth, and they invite the other person to examine what's really going on inside them. It's surprising how often people back off when asked to explain their accusations with concrete examples. Immunity to others' projections brings immediate benefits. You stop defending yourself against accusations that don't represent who you are. You no longer alter your behavior to meet distorted perceptions, and you preserve your psychic energy, which was once drained by those interactions. You begin to live from your center, not from others' projections. Another essential aspect of Jungian emotional protection is what I call emotional alchemy, the ability to transform negative experiences into psychological growth. Jung was deeply inspired by medieval alchemy, seeing it as a metaphor for the inner transformation process. Psychological gold is the ultimate liberation, he said. When someone tries to hurt you with an unfair critique, a manipulation, or a direct attack, instead of simply defending yourself or taking the hit, ask yourself, what can I learn about myself from this difficult interaction? Maybe you'll discover a blind spot in your communication, a tendency to attract certain types of dynamics, or an opportunity to strengthen underdeveloped aspects of your personality. This is the essence of true alchemy, turning the lead of toxic interactions into the gold of self-awareness. When you consistently extract lessons from hard moments, you begin to see them differently, not as devastating blows, but as challenging opportunities for growth. Ironically, the more you adopt this mindset, the less others can hurt you. The emotional transmutation technique involves 3 steps. First, acknowledge the unpleasant emotion that arose from the interaction, anger, hurt, shame. Second, Identify the unmet need behind that emotion. Respect, understanding, validation. Third, find a healthy and self-sufficient way to meet that need, regardless of the person who triggered it. For example, if someone made a comment that triggered your professional insecurity, instead of seeking validation from that person or internalizing the critique, you can consciously affirm your own value, review your accomplishments, and seek constructive feedback from reliable sources. That way, you transform insecurity into renewed self-confidence. Jung also taught us the power of reframing, our ability to change the inner narrative about what we experience. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, he said. When someone tries to manipulate or belittle you, you can choose to interpret it not as a reflection of your worth, but as insight into that person's inner state. One powerful exercise in this context is what I call narrative rewriting. After a difficult interaction, write 2 short paragraphs. In the first, describe what happened from the perspective of the victim. I was unfairly attacked, I felt small and disrespected. In the second, rewrite the same situation from the viewpoint of the wise observer. This person was projecting their own insecurities. It says more about them than about me. With practice, your mind will naturally shift toward this second narrative. Jung also developed the concept of protective archetypes, primal psychic forces we all possess and can consciously activate to protect ourselves emotionally. The warrior archetype brings courage and assertiveness. The sage offers clarity and perspective. The inner mother or father gives us emotional care and grounding. When you feel emotionally vulnerable or under attack, practice invoking the protective archetype that best fits the situation. Visualize it as a presence within you. Feel its qualities, emerging. Embody its energy. Ask yourself, which archetype do I need to activate right now to protect myself wisely? This question can instantly shift your internal state. The great irony Jung uncovered about emotional protection is what I call the paradox of conscious vulnerability. The more you consciously accept your real vulnerabilities, the less vulnerable you become to manipulation or attack. When you've already owned and embraced your weaknesses, no one can use them against you. This is a crucial point in the Jungian approach. It's not about building an impenetrable wall around yourself. It's about cultivating such deep inner strength that you can remain open without being wounded. You don't need to fear vulnerability when it comes from conscious choice, not unconscious reaction. Think of your emotional protection like a healthy cell membrane, not a concrete wall. A cell membrane is selectively permeable. It allows in what nourishes, releases what needs to go, and maintains structural integrity. That's exactly what Jung proposes, living intelligent boundaries that filter what enters your psychological space. To develop this kind of healthy filter, Jung would recommend what I call the practice of conscious presence. When you're in a potentially toxic interaction, stay anchored in your breath and your bodily sensations. Notice the first signs of discomfort, tightness in your chest, a lump in your throat, a faster heartbeat. These are your early warning signs that something is trying to penetrate your healthy boundaries. When you sense these signs, don't immediately react or suppress the feeling. Just acknowledge, something in me is responding to this. That awareness creates space between the external stimulus and your response. What Viktor Frankl, another brilliant psychologist influenced by Jung, called the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose your response. Another fundamental element of Jungian emotional protection is what he called connection with the self, your deepest psychic center beyond ego. Jung believed that when we are connected to this authentic inner core, we naturally develop sharper discernment about what belongs to us and what doesn't. The daily practice of centering in the self involves regular moments of inner stillness, where you detach from social roles, external expectations, and internalized voices. Ask yourself, what is truly mine? What is authentically important to me beyond what others expect? This strengthens your inner compass and makes it much harder for others to manipulate or divert you from your path. Jung also taught about the importance of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that seem to guide us. Pay attention to recurring patterns in your difficult interactions. Do you always end up feeling dismissed? Do you often attract people who try to control your choices? These patterns aren't random. They're invitations to awaken to unconscious aspects that need integration. One powerful tool to develop this awareness is what I call the energy detector. Become highly aware of how different people and environments affect your energy field. Some people leave you feeling light, inspired, energized. Others drain. Field. Some people leave you feeling light, inspired, energized. Others drain you even if they haven't said or done anything obviously negative. Trust those energetic readings. They're a form of intelligence that goes beyond logic. Make it a habit to check in with your energy during interactions. How am I feeling right now? Is my energy rising or falling? Am I expanding or contracting in this conversation? Over time, these energy check-ins become second nature, giving you real-time feedback about the quality of your connections. To keep your psychological boundaries strong and healthy, Jung would recommend regular evaluations, moments to consciously assess how your emotional defenses are functioning. Ask yourself, where am I allowing unnecessary invasions? Where am I maintaining rigid walls that no longer serve me? Which relationships need boundary adjustments? This regular maintenance is crucial because our protection needs change over time. Relationships evolve, old wounds heal, new vulnerabilities appear. A healthy boundary is never static. It breathes, adapts, evolves. As Jung said, becoming is better than being. Our psychological defenses must be just as dynamic. Another profound aspect of Jungian emotional protection is what I call the responsibility of awakening. As you become more self-aware and psychologically protected, you'll notice some people react negatively to your transformation. That's natural and expected. Your growth disrupts the system they were used to. Relatives who always manipulated you through guilt might intensify their tactics when they see you no longer respond the same way. Co-workers used to dumping their frustrations on you might feel threatened by your new boundaries. Friends who related to you through unconscious dynamics might say, "You've changed," and not necessarily as a compliment. Jung teaches us this resistance is a natural part of individuation. What you resist controls you. What you accept transforms you. By accepting the inevitability of external resistance, you free yourself from the need to appease others or revert to old patterns just to maintain superficial peace. Develop what I call detached compassion, the ability to understand how difficult your change is for others without feeling responsible for easing their discomfort. You can say to yourself, "I understand my transformation is challenging for you, but I can't shrink myself again just to keep you comfortable." A powerful technique in this context is empathetic but firm mirroring. When someone reacts negatively to your new boundaries, you might say, "I see this change in our dynamic is difficult for you. I'm open to finding new ways for us to connect, but I can't return to old patterns that were unhealthy for me." This kind of response communicates both empathy and clarity. You acknowledge the other person's discomfort without taking responsibility for fixing it. It's the perfect balance between compassion and self-preservation that Jung so deeply valued. To know another and still remain true to yourself is the highest form of human love, he might say. A crucial element Jung emphasized in emotional protection is the integration of the collective shadow. We live in a society that often normalizes poor boundaries, one that glorifies self-sacrifice over self-care, confuses healthy limits with selfishness, and romanticizes codependent relationships as love. Recognizing these cultural influences as part of the collective shadow is liberating. You begin to see that many of your difficulties in setting boundaries are not personal flaws, but deeply ingrained social conditioning. Jung said that awareness is the first step to transcendence. Practice identifying cultural messages that undermine your healthy boundaries. The idea that you should always put others first. The belief that saying no is rude or selfish. The myth that love means being endlessly available, or that you're responsible for others' feelings. The more conscious you become of these messages, the less power they hold over you. The Jungian technique of dialogue with the inner opposite is also incredibly helpful here. If you tend to be overly accommodating and struggle with boundaries, try speaking with your inner assertive self, the part of you that knows exactly what it wants and isn't afraid to say it. Ask it, what would you do in this situation? How would you respond to this manipulation? Likewise, if you tend to react by building rigid walls when threatened, talk to your wise, vulnerable self, the part of you that knows how to stay open without being overwhelmed. Integrating. These opposites creates what Jung called the third position, not submission or defensiveness, but a higher response that transcends both extremes. A transformative practice Jung would support is the conscious detachment ritual. Identify a relationship or dynamic that consistently drains your energy or compromises your well-being. Create a small symbolic ritual where you intentionally cut the energetic cords keeping you tied to that toxic pattern. It can be as simple as writing down the dynamic you're releasing and safely burning the paper, or visualizing energetic cords being severed as you breathe deeply. The power of ritual is in engaging your unconscious in the act of release, something Jung deeply understood. Another powerful practice is what I call energy flow reorientation. Many empathetic people are naturally outward-focused, constantly attuned to others' emotional needs. Jung would teach us to balance that flow, learn to turn your attention and energy inward with the same intensity you give to the outside world. In practice, this means cultivating an inner garden as rich and complex as your outer life. Develop interests that are yours alone. Build a deep relationship with yourself. Become your own best friend and confidant. The more abundant your inner life becomes, the less susceptible you are to external manipulation. Jung firmly believed that our relationship with the collective unconscious, the vast reservoir of symbols, images, and archetypes shared by all, humanity, affects our psychological protection. When we consciously connect with these larger patterns, we gain perspective on our personal struggles. A valuable technique here is working with dreams and symbols. Pay close attention to your dreams, especially those involving invasion, protection, or transformation. These often carry precise guidance from your unconscious about how to strengthen your boundaries. Likewise, observe recurring symbols and images in your life that evoke strong feelings of protection or vulnerability. A sturdy tree, a shield, a circle of light. Use these personally significant symbols in your visualizations. Symbols are the native language of the unconscious, Jung said. Working with them gives you direct access to your deepest layers. Now, let's bring it all together in a daily Jungian emotional protection practice, something you can incorporate into your morning routine to begin each day with strong and intact psychological boundaries. Before checking your phone or tackling the day's demands, set aside 5 minutes for what I call the sacred circle practice. Sit comfortably, breathe deeply, and visualize a golden circle of light around you. This circle represents your healthy psychological boundaries, flexible yet strong, permeable to nourishment, impenetrable to harm. As you breathe within this circle, silently affirm, "Within this space I am sovereign. I consciously choose what I allow in and what I keep out." Visualize your life energy filling the circle completely, no leaks, no external invasions. Feel the clarity of your discernment, the strength of your centered presence. Before ending the practice, visualize the people and situations you'll encounter during the day. See yourself engaging from this protected state, able to connect authentically without absorbing negative energies or projections. See yourself responding to manipulation with calm and clarity, maintaining your inner integrity. This simple morning ritual programs your nervous system and psyche for a new way of interacting with the world. Over time, you'll notice profound changes. People who used to easily unbalance you lose that power. Situations that used to drain you no longer affect you as deeply. And you'll feel freer than ever to be who you truly are, without fear of the consequences. Remember, true emotional protection is not an armor you wear, but a presence you cultivate. And that presence, centered, conscious, compassionate, yet unshakable, is your birthright. Claim it now and discover what it truly means to live free.